Hey guys, my name is Christina.
My name is Brian, and welcome to What the Fuck Did I Just Watch?
Where every week we will be rolling a 26-face die that will determine the first letter of the movie we will watch this week.
The twist is that one of us, or both of us, have never seen the movie before.
So join us as we share our thoughts on the movie.
I mean, that's gonna be horrible, but yes, absolutely.
Have a few laughs.
Stop it. And discuss what the fuck we just watched.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of What the Fuck Did I Just Watch? I am your host, Christina. Joined with me is my best friend.
Are you? Okay. I thought you were gonna say my name.
I almost did, but then I was debating in my head to call you Brian or Pants, and then the pause became too long, and then I just looked at you.
Well, hello.
Anyways, it's Pants.
Yes.
Welcome back. So this week we are covering two movies, which
Kind of.
Well, okay, yes, two renditions of a movie. So as many of you know, the Snydercut for Justice League recently came out. We wanted to do something a little bit different because we both very much had an interest in watching the new movie. So that was really exciting. We were able to fit in, what did it equal out to? Almost 7 hours of movie?
Yeah. 6.5, 7-ish.
Yeah. I think that where we failed is that we started watching the Snyder Cut at like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And that movie is 4 hours long.
Yeah. And there was like pauses to go do other things.
Well, we were eating dinner.
Yeah.
And then I had made a pie.
Yep. It just wasn't well thought out.
No, I
On
agree.
your part, mostly.
Oh, okay. Thanks, jerk. I fed you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you're welcome. Growing up, who was your favorite superhero?
Out of any?
In the DC world. Growing up, who was your favorite?
I think I started with like the basic like Superman, just because that's the one I saw the most, and I watched the cartoons, and I watched the Batman animated series, and I don't know. I guess I would say Superman from a young age, and then as I grew up and I got introduced to more superheroes, like kind of on like the darker side of things, like Justice League Dark and things like that, it changed periodically. But I was always much more involved with Marvel than I was DC.
Because as soon as I asked that question, I was like, oh, I actually know the answer to this, because when I first met you, you were super big into Superman. I know that's changed over the years. But I kind of already knew the answer to that.
Wow.
But for those of you that didn't, you're welcome.
Yeah. That's the content everybody wants. Did you have one?
You know, I thought about this because I wanted to ask you, and then it came to me as I asked. But I don't think that I was really big into superheroes growing up.
I could see that.
Yeah. I think that our household was mostly filled with, I don't know. I have to think about it, because I definitely did watch the movies growing up, but I don't think it was like a big part of my childhood.
I would say growing up, I think definitely the first Superman movie that I ever saw like in a theater was Superman Returns with Brandon Routh as Superman, and that got pretty like torn apart by everybody. I thought it was okay at the time, but it also came out, if I remember right, like around the time of Tokyo Drift. So that's kind of where like my headspace was with movies.
You're so cute.
So, and I think that's still the only like Fast and Furious movie I've seen all the way through.
Yeah, that's so funny. I think that's the worst one too. That's the second one.
That's the third one.
Oh, what's the second one? The second one's not
Too
good.
Fast, Too Furious.
Tokyo Drift is like not with the main cast.
It has some of them, but no.
Okay.
I think Paul Walker's in it.
I don't think I liked that one. I don't know. There are so many of them. I love them, but there are so many of them.
I saw Hobbs and Shaw.
I have not seen that. Please don't add it to the list.
It's very ridiculous. No, I don't want to watch it.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I actually remember very distinctly that Spider-Man was really big in our household. And Nikki and I finally convinced my dad to get us an Xbox. And we got the Spider-Man game, and it was 2-player, and I was always Spider-Man. And Nick was so mad about that. We had a conversation not too long ago where she had brought it up again, and I was like, dang, you really hold on to things like that. Like, I don't even remember, but it's true. I would always make her play the other character. Who was the second
player?
It was always, like, one of the evil characters, but they were, like, partnered up to, like, do a mission or
just
something.
Just so you could do 2 players, pretty much.
Yeah.
I had a Spider-Man game for PlayStation or PlayStation 2. I think it was PlayStation. And that was great. I enjoyed that. Yeah, I was much more into the Marvel side of things growing up, but I did have like a general knowledge of the DC universe. I think just enough for me to understand what's going on in these movies and sort of appreciate it.
Yeah. Mine was always very superficial. Like, I knew of the Batman movies. I think I had seen them here and there. I very distinctly remember the Catwoman movie with Halle Berry and how much that
Sorry
tanked.
about that.
But I loved her. I don't think that movie did her any justice.
No. No.
But anyways, let's dive into it. I just wanted to kind of start it off hearing a little bit about, where your background and love for these movies came from. So why don't you give us the stats?
All right. So starting with the first Justice League movie that came out in November 2017, they're both starring Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, Ezra Miller, Jason Momoa, and Ray Fisher. The 2017 version was mainly overseen and directed by Joss Whedon. Had a budget of $300 million, and its domestic gross was $230 million.
Ouch.
The IMDb rating is 6.2, which is higher than I expected it to be.
Definitely.
Rotten Tomatoes is 40%, which makes more sense. Though the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 71%.
Really? I think people were just really wanting a movie, and they really wanted to like it, because
it's kind of like when Star Wars Episode 1 came out, and people just hadn't seen a Star Wars movie in a long time, and they were like, this is great, I love this, but the movie was not good.
No.
Yeah, like looking back, it's very subpar.
Well, I'm even thinking about it, and I'm trying to figure out if they watched a different movie than the one that I watched, because those stats are entirely too high to be the same movie that I endured.
So we watched this on, we watched both of these on HBO Max. So the plot summary from IMDb is, fueled by his restored faith in humanity and inspired by Superman's selfless act, Bruce Wayne enlists the help of a newfound ally, Diana Prince, to face an even greater enemy. So that's pretty much the basis for both movies. The only difference with the 2021 version being that it was, of course, directed by Zack Snyder. He did get to oversee this with his quote-unquote original vision for the movie. The budget, though I don't have an exact number, from what I've read, HBO and Warner Brothers gave him around $70 million to do the recuts and the additional scenes. The IMDb rating for the Snyder Cut is 8.4. And Rotten Tomatoes sits at 73% with a 96% audience score.
That's about right.
So I do agree for the most part. What were your overall thoughts on the 2017 cut of Justice League?
It's hard to find the words.
Dig
I think that there were a lot of missed opportunities to make it better. It felt very rushed. We didn't have a lot of time to really invest in the characters. I think that coming into the movie, having already had a background and understanding who these characters are just because of the films that have come out with them, solo, it was rough. There were a lot of choices that were made that I think aimed at being lighthearted or funny, and it tanked with me. I found it really cheesy and corny. They just blew through a lot of things. There were a lot of holes to me. overall, even the CGI was bad. The bad guy was scary, but he wasn't terrifying. I don't know why they chose to do some of the colors that they did, but in comparison to like the Snyder Cut, I mean, they're two very different movies, very different, you know, execution of things, and I would probably never watch it again.
So I had seen the 2017 movie shortly after it came out. I did not see it in theaters because I did not want to waste my money on it. I had kind of followed like the turmoil behind the scenes with it. So I kind of knew that it was going to be a bit of a mess. Now, keeping in mind, this movie came out prior to the first Wonder Woman and Aquaman. This came out directly after Batman v Superman, which introduced Diana Prince. Batman v Superman also had a director's cut. Most of Zack Snyder's movies do end up getting director's cuts because he just kind of throws everything out there and the studio's like, no, cut it down. Like 2 hours max.
Yeah, they've got to do some trimming.
Right. And I guess to him that often feels like he's not able to share fully what he has, I guess, to offer, right?
He's a very detailed director. Yeah. I didn't know where you were going.
I lost it.
That's okay. I enjoyed it. I think that 4 hours was a bit much, but I understand why he did it that way. It allowed for you to really have an opportunity to be invested in the characters, to have a backstory on them, and to appreciate their kind of journey through this. I also liked that, spoiler warning, if you haven't already watched these movies and you've not listened to our podcast before, there will be spoilers. So if you have never seen either movie, I suggest that you pause us, go watch them, give yourself plenty of time because it will take you about 7 hours to get through both of them, and then come back, chat with us. I think that I lost my train of thought giving the spoiler alert. Okay, no, I do understand where Snyder wanted a longer cut. Each character has a good little story. I liked following that. I enjoyed watching them be in their element. Like, they are superheroes, but they're injected into society kind of on a normal level. And so that was pretty neat. I enjoyed that part. I think that we've talked about this a lot, but Flash is my freaking favorite. I think that he brought, even in the first one, which was garbage, he brought an element of comedy that was really great. And I think that saved the movie for me. And then in Snyder's cut, it was a bit longer. You still had some of those jokey elements to it. He was still, you know, the young superhero joining, you know, all these.
He's very much like the Peter Parker.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And so I liked him a lot. I just, again, I think that watching it as late as we did really hindered my ability to fully love this movie because it just felt like it dragged.
So I will say that since we decided to do this, I've watched both of these movies multiple times. I watched the first one the day that we decided to watch the Snyder Cut, and then went over to your place. We watched it. Throughout the week this week, because it's been about a week since it came out that we're recording this, I have managed to watch the 2017 cut again. I have watched the Snyder Cut again. And then they put out Justice League Justice is Gray, which is, I don't even know why they did this, but it probably has to do with Snyder's ultimate vision, and he wanted it in black and white for dramatic effect. I don't fucking know. But whatever.
You sounded so offended.
The whole movie was released again in black and white, and I was like, sure, whatever, I'll watch it. So I've seen the Snyder Cut 3 times now.
Oh my god.
And
I cannot.
I think I'm probably done with it now, since we're actually recording. My opinions are pretty much the same as yours. The first movie was garbage. You could tell that there was much more of a story there that was planned that just didn't make it.
Yeah, they just cut through it really quickly.
Right. And Flash was the only levity in that movie. Like, I do... My thoughts on the DC Justice League would be Ben Affleck is actually a good Batman. I would be totally down for a solo movie, but he's apparently done with Batman.
That's sad.
I do think Henry Cavill is a good Superman. I think Man of Steel is a pretty good movie. Batman v Superman is garbage. Of course, Gal Gadot is great as Wonder Woman.
Yes.
I think...
except for the second one.
She is still good.
No,
as
she is
Wonder
wonderful.
Woman. The movie is.
I liked Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Hated.
1984 was not good. Right.
No.
It's a story for another day, Tina.
I'm sorry. You're right. But you mentioned her, and I love her so much.
Ezra Miller is wonderful as Flash.
I love his name.
Barry Allen or Ezra Miller?
Ezra.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I know that's really random, but I do like that name a lot.
That's great. That was 100% worth interrupting me for.
Find your train of thought.
And I do think Ray Fisher is pretty good as Cyborg. I think, unfortunately, he suffered in both movies. Definitely in the 2017 version, where his story was just not developed.
It wasn't there
at all.
No. And up until the actual climax of the movie, I couldn't tell if we were supposed to like him or not like him. And again,
he's kind of a dick.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
This is again from the consumer side of things, because I just watch. I have no idea backstories. I'm hoping that the movie delivers that, and I think that brings a good point.
And it should.
Is that I had no idea if he was a good guy or a bad guy. They never made that clear until he kind of teamed up with them, and even then I was a little skeptical because of the way that they chose to make his character.
Right. Cyborg gets probably the best fleshed out backstory in comparison from the Whedoncut to the Snydercut. I do think the character still doesn't fully work for me. He's just kind of overpowered in a way that he can just hack anything and make anything happen that he wants as long as tech is involved.
That kind of deems the question why did he choose to be good instead of bad? I feel like somebody who has that much access, because we've seen it in movies unfold all the time, where they have access to all these things and they opt to be kind of the big bad guy because there's already so much bad in the world. What's the point in,
right?
And they didn't really cover that. He's like, okay.
And I mean, I think there would be good, solo movie potential there for him to have an arc where maybe he had those conflicting emotions, to be good or be bad. But again, unfortunately, Ray Fisher is out of the DCEU. He left. By the look on your face, I'm going to assume you did not know that.
I did not.
Okay. So his quick backstory is that he had major clashes on the set with, I believe, Joss Whedon. He was just treated very unfairly. There was, I believe, some racial stuff involved. And when he brought this to Warner Brothers, they didn't feel that it warranted a huge investigation.
Wow.
They said they say they investigated, but they also said that they didn't find anything wrong. But he's out. So any Cyborg movie that comes out will not be with Ray Fisher. So that's half of the Justice League.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Henry Cavill is coming back either. We're not there's conflicting things about whether he's actually going to be back or not.
He has the craziest body I've ever seen in my entire life.
I was a stunt double. I don't know why you're laughing.
Okay, pants. He has a literal teeth, a triangle formation, and in his Superman suit, he looks like the comics. Did he do any work to get to be that physique for the movie, or is that how he looks?
I mean, I know for me that's just how I look, but I think
I'm
with
so
Henry
done with this
Cavill,
conversation. Just move on.
No, he went through strenuous workouts. They all do.
I think that it's so crazy what actors put their bodies through for roles. I know that now it's not so much because you have, advances in technology where they can do those things digitally. But
so I'm gonna segue right there, because now I don't know if you know this, but this was everywhere at one point. Whenever Justice League came out, the 2017, Joss Whedon notoriously went back and did a shit ton of reshoots. And during that time, Henry Cavill was filming Mission Impossible.
Okay.
And he had a mustache. So do you know anything about this?
No.
Okay. So
now I feel like I have to go look up the images because I feel like I know where you're going.
Okay. So whenever he went back for the reshoots, they had to digitally edit out his mustache. And it is blatantly obvious, especially in the very first scene of the Whedoncut, where Superman is talking into like a kid's cell phone camera. And his mouth just looks really fucked up.
I was wondering why that was a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, now
and there's definitely more close-ups throughout the movie where you can tell that like his upper lip just looks really weird or thin.
Yeah.
And that's because they very poorly took out his mustache. And they did a much better job for the Snyder Cut because he looks normal.
Yeah.
It begs the question, like, what the fuck were they doing? Like, if they had to go back and do this much work for the movie, it's not worth it.
Right. So I know that you really wanted to highlight an article that you sent me, which I thought was super interesting because I don't do a lot of reading, so I didn't know. That made me sound really poor.
Because you're illiterate.
That's not what I'm getting at. I don't do a lot of reading towards blockbuster films. But I thought it was really interesting and really heartbreaking, like the story behind why Snyder had to walk away from the original Justice League movie.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I didn't know everything that was going on behind the scenes. And I can't possibly imagine how they felt watching what was something that they were probably really excited about turn into that.
So Zack Snyder's never seen the Whedoncut.
I did read that. But I just mean like, the cast probably has seen it. And I know his wife did see it.
Yes.
And so I know that they all very much were behind Snyder's vision.
Mm-hmm.
And that they knew where he was going with it. And then to have him pulled from the... Well, again, for him to have walked away from the movie and then watch it kind of develop into what it turned out to be.
Because it's turned into something that's legendary for being bad. I do want to say, before we actually get into like the movie itself, while I very much appreciate that the Snyder Cut exists, I think it does set a pretty bad precedent for trolls online now getting their way. Whenever the Whedon cut came out, there was just an onslaught of people online who were just demanding the Snyder Cut, release the Snyder Cut. It was just a hashtag, and it was this whole movement. I didn't think it was going to happen. I don't think a lot of people thought it was going to happen. But then HBO Max happened, and this became a big pull for HBO Max. I'm very happy that Snyder gets to put out this version of his story with these people, but I don't agree with how it came about.
Yeah.
I don't want to give people like that ammunition, because now they're already trying to release an Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. There
was a lot of things online too about how Whedon wasn't very kind to the cast and the crew members, and I'm glad that they were able to get the version that they wanted out there. But just like you said, the way that it kind of came about is a little scary. The influence that people have online nowadays, like the whole cancel movement and all that crap, is sometimes it's justified, and a lot of the times it's just people running their mouths, getting people behind them who have absolutely no idea what's going on, and it's scary. I think that online, keyboard warriors have really changed just people being vulnerable online anymore. You can't say anything without somebody bringing it back and making it haunt you for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. You could be at the grocery store and somebody records you doing something weird and your life is ruined.
Right. And it probably didn't like help, or it did help, I guess, that I believe it was Jason Momoa that actually started joining in with release the Snyder Cut.
Oh, really?
And just all these people envisioned that this movie was finished somewhere and just laying on the floor.
Uh-huh.
And they just had it in their mind that Zack Snyder had this whole mega movie hidden away somewhere and that he could just put it out. But no, it required $70 million.
Yeah. Which I think is really cool that he had already had everything that he needed to develop the movie. He just needed, I think, to shoot another scene or...
The epilogue.
Right? Okay. But outside of that, he was able to use all of those funds to bring the movie to life and, you know, put in the music and the CGI and things that he actually wanted.
Had some great music.
Okay. But I yes, pants, I do. I thought that was really great in the sense that he had more control over how the film came out this go around. Whereas, yes, because Warner Brothers could not do this movie unless he said yes. Mm-hmm. And so he was able to say, no, that's not how I want it. This is how it's going to be. And they had to run with it because if they wanted to launch it on HBO Max, then they had to abide by what he wanted.
Yep. He didn't use any footage that he didn't shoot. Mm-hmm. So any of the reshoots, they weren't used. Which
I'm glad because a lot of them are really dumb.
I will say the only thing that I missed from the Whedoncut to the Snyder Cut, it's very small, and I'm even surprised I caught it. I think there's 2 mentions from Flash about Pet Sematary. Whenever they're talking about bringing Superman back, Flash says something like, well, this isn't going to be like a Pet Sematary situation, right? Mm-hmm. And then when Superman does get brought back and he's evil, and Flash is like, Pet Sematary. And that it made me laugh whenever I watched it. And I don't think I noticed, but half, or not even like 3/4 of the way through the Snyder Cut that didn't happen again. But
they still gave him quite a few lines to be comical. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed him a lot.
So the Snyder Cut is presented in 4:3 aspect ratio. So it's square. Opening scene is definitely completely overhauled, like right from the start. We see, instead of opening like Whedon's cut with Superman talking into the kid's cell phone camera, it kind of goes back to an alternate version of what we saw in Batman v Superman, where Superman is being killed by Doomsday, and it's actually his like pulsating screams that are echoing all around the world and activating the mother boxes, instead of the mother boxes just sensing or knowing that he's no longer there, mm-hmm. like they were originally. Mm-hmm. So I thought that whole visual and the whole scene, albeit probably too long, like a lot of the scenes in the movie,
I was gonna say,
was very cool, and I liked that version a lot better.
But even from the beginning, that scene was so dragged out, and it kind of like foreshadowed what the rest of the movie was going to look like, but I didn't know yet until the next scene was equally as long, if not longer. Mm-hmm. And then I said, oh. And I remember you and I looked at each other, we were like, this is why this movie is 4 hours long.
Yeah. Because I would say a good like 1/5 of the movie is just slow motion or overextended scenes that are aerial views of mountains or some shit.
Oh my gosh, there was that. That's what it was. The second scene was literally just
like Bruce Wayne.
Snow caps.
Yeah.
Another view of snow caps.
Mm-hmm. He's still walking on them.
More snow caps. Mm-hmm. Bruce. I did like that. Aside from those very unnecessary beginning scenes, they're not unnecessary. They were just unnecessarily long. Mm-hmm. I did appreciate the elongated versions of backstories for the characters.
Yes.
And like the opening one is Aquaman,
right?
Where that's the first one that you encounter, and even that interaction in the Snyder Cut versus the Whedon cut was gold. I think that the Whedon cut tried too hard to play like a comedic air to it, and failed miserably because it was really cringy. It was uncomfortable to watch, and this one gave him more of like the lead mentality. I'm talking about in that like
in
community,
the community, right?
Without making it a joke.
Sure.
Because Aquaman's already kind of hard to take seriously.
Yeah.
And I talked to you about this before, but I hated in the Whedon cut that Jason Momoa does this weird, like, cross his arms across his chest thing and jump backwards into the water, and that's how he, like, swims away. It was so dumb. Now, I'm not saying he needed to do, like, a side Olympic dive into the ocean, but they could have cut it. And in the Snyder cut, he did. It focused back on the community, like, singing because he brings them
peace,
together, prosperity, whatever. And then it cut back to him, and he's gone. And I was like, yes, thank you. That's all it needed. You didn't have to show him.
Yeah.
It was so stupid in the Whedon cut. I just remember being so mad about it because even the talk from, I guess, their town hall to the ocean in the Snyder cut is way better. They still have a couple jokes, but I don't know how else to put it, but it kind of gave me more of like an Avenger vibe in the sense that it was done well. Like those conversations, those jokes were just in casual conversation versus forcibly being put into a spot.
Right. I did appreciate all these scenes underwater in Atlantis a lot more.
I still hate that so much.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's great.
You're right.
But comparing it to the Whedon cut, it definitely gives more substance. It shows how they acquired their mother box. How they went about protecting it. And
I saw that the Green Goblin made an appearance. I never know his name. I just remember he played the Green Goblin in a Spider-Man movie.
Oh god, I thought you were talking about Green Lantern and you were getting the name wrong.
No!
Oh my god.
I hate that you go worst case for me.
Embarrassment was so high for you because I was gonna leave it in.
I hate doing these podcasts with you.
I'm cutting that.
Pants
that was
edits all of these cuts, by the way, and so he likes to leave in the times where I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. So
it's the pants cut.
It's the pants cut. Oh god.
No one wants the Tina cut.
No.
So yeah, as someone who really didn't like the Aquaman movie, nor do I really like the Aquaman character.
I don't think I watched the movie either, just for...
I mean, people like it.
Yeah?
Like how they like Wonder Woman. Like, it was kind of this breath of fresh air from what Snyder had kind of brought to the DCEU, which was, dark tones and broody characters and whatever. So both Wonder Woman and Aquaman were more brightly colored, definitely lighter movies. But that just, it wasn't for me. And I mean, I'm fine. I don't care if people like it. Good.
Yeah.
Somebody likes it. We do get to see where each mother box goes. We get to see, again, how the Atlanteans protect theirs. We get to see how man protects theirs, which is burying it.
In the middle of the forest.
Right. They just dig a hole that's not that deep and just cover it in dirt. That sums up man.
You stay there.
And then the Amazons.
I almost did the introduction song for what is that song called?
That's
Welcome to the Jungle.
No, it's not.
I don't know why that came into my head. What is that song?
It's from Thor.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I love that fucking music.
God, I forget the name of that song.
I wish that they had that playing for the Amazons. Anyways, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Cue music. That's what it sounded like.
I'm gonna have to go back.
We can start that over. Go ahead.
And we also get to see how the Amazons protect their mother box, which is probably like the best visually.
Yes.
They're all just standing around armed, ready for whatever is gonna happen.
That was so much cooler in the Snydercut.
Schneider.
Damn it, I hate when I do that. I don't mean to. In the Snydercut.
Yes. I mean, all of that was just much more fleshed out. And there's a battle between the Amazons once their box wakes up. Mm-hmm. There's a battle between them and Darkseid instead of Steppenwolf, like it was in the Whedoncut.
Uh-huh.
It's definitely more bloody. It's graphic.
That was one thing that I did notice in the Snydercut versus the Whedoncut
Mm-hmm.
is that they weren't afraid to show like some blood splatters.
Oh yeah, that's Snyder like through and through. Like
it wasn't overly done though.
Right.
It was just alarming because you went for a very long time without seeing any of that, and then suddenly it was quite frequent.
Right. And I mean, it's to be expected. Like, I mean, he did 300.
Well, then I'm surprised there wasn't more.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was definitely, like, restrained, I think. There's a scene during that battle where a Green Lantern is seen, and his hand gets chopped off by Darkseid. Whereas, in the other one, the lantern just dies, and his ring floats away. So, he added his little, like, bloody, gory flourishes here and there, but I don't think it was overdone.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was...
No.
I'm down for, like, dark, bloody, R-rated superhero movies. Like, that's what I appreciated about Snyder's Man of Steel. And it wasn't very bloody, but it was dark. And Superman killed in that movie, which is something that people were up in arms about. I mean, he snapped someone's neck at the end. And I thought that was badass. Another departure from the Whedoncut that, not a huge one, but one that I definitely noticed off the bat was the bank heist scene in the beginning with Wonder Woman. And that happens pretty quick in the Whedoncut.
Yeah.
But it takes a good 45 minutes or so, as does everything in the Snydercut. When we see Wonder Woman standing on top of the bank, or wherever she's at, we are treated to this angelic music that
was such a weird laugh, but it's because I just... Oh, God.
But the first time I heard it, I thought it was, an interesting choice, because it then breaks into the Wonder Woman theme, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. I like that rendition of it a lot. But every time an Amazon was shown, or Wonder Woman was shown, maybe even mentioned, thought of, even, they played this music, which in the subtitles is ancient lamentation music, and it's everywhere.
At first, I thought it was interesting as well. I think I was more on the side like I liked it, but it was because I thought it was a one and done. Mm-hmm. And then as you just put, it was every single time.
Yeah.
There is no exaggeration on that. Every single time there was a good 5 to 10 seconds of that music playing in the background. And I don't think anybody else has introduction music, so I don't understand where that came into play.
I mean, definitely not music like that.
No.
Like, I think they all have, like, their themes, but she also has a theme, and it's her Wonder Woman theme. But this was just added on top of that for God knows what reason. But it was very distracting throughout the whole movie.
In the beginning, it was cool. I think that they did it, like, as they were approaching... I'm not gonna lie. I don't remember when they did it, but I thought that the way that they placed it in the beginning was cool. And then I heard it a second time, and I was like, okay. And then it continued.
They did it for an Amazon scene, and then they did it at the bank. Those were the first two. And then they just kept doing it.
Yeah. Because I remember when Superman came back and they put the camera on to Gal, it started again.
Oh, yeah. It's just every time she walks in somewhere, they're like, oh, Wonder Woman's here.
Yeah. Cue the music.
Yeah. So the bank scene was definitely longer. It ended with the robbers actually being killed instead of arrested. And there was a sweet scene, and this is kind of why I bring up this scene. There was a scene where Wonder Woman is letting all of the hostages know, it's okay now. You can get up. You can leave. And this little girl asks Wonder Woman if she can be like her someday. And, Wonder Woman's like, you can be whatever you want. I mean, as long as you're an Amazon, have superpowers, then you can maybe.
I know. How do you tell a little girl, like, it's not Maybelline?
It definitely goes more into the Amazon backstory of how the arrow of Artemis, I believe it's called, works, or what it's there for, which is to let Wonder Woman know that the box is open, I guess. Mm-hmm. And it goes definitely more into showing the Amazons preparing the arrow and doing this ritual. And
I always think that those things are neat.
I think it definitely is important. Whereas in Whedon's version, you just see her shoot an arrow into the air and be like, Diana will know what it means.
They talked about it a little bit.
Not really.
I understood.
I mean, they definitely didn't go into it like they did in Snyder's Cut.
No, yeah.
Which you can say about anything in the Snyder Cut, but it definitely made more sense to me.
Yeah.
And that led into another kind of issue I had with Whedon's cut was when Diana sees this Amazon temple on fire, she just knows what it is. Then she's off to Bruce Wayne. Whereas in the Snyder Cut, she takes the arrow, she uses it to open this chamber below the temple, and down there she sees ancient pictures on the wall that kind of tell the story of Darkseid, the parademons, and everything that's about to happen. Whereas in the first one, she just kind of throws out the word parademon, and we're like, oh, okay, like, sure, the subtitles told me what they were, but this is the first time it's being said on screen.
It just gave you more information so that you would understand where the story was going.
I think that is seen most, as we said before, with Cyborg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his story finally had some justice. And I didn't...
Justice.
Oh, wow. And I didn't have that weird feeling of knowing or not knowing if he was a good or bad guy.
Right. He had a monologue in the first one that just kind of said, that his mom was in a car crash, or his dad said it maybe, I don't know, and that he was involved in it, and his dad rescued him.
Couldn't bear to lose his wife and his son.
Right. And he used the power of this mother box to make him whole again, I guess.
I don't think they ever go into detail in either one how they channeled the mother box to help.
It's just kind of alluded to that his dad's super smart. He's a scientist working for Star Labs, and he uses the power of the mother box to create the rest of Cyborg's body. And it shows that more in the Snyder Cut, where his body's being created.
Yeah.
And Snyder's version also, like, it shows off that body that he has much more. It's not hidden under a hoodie.
Yeah.
Like his first interaction with Diana, instead of, showing up in a hoodie on a dark street, he flies in fully armored. And
Whedon didn't have any more money.
Yeah, sure. And then when he takes off, he goes like full mask.
Yeah.
Like, where I don't know that his mask was shown, but maybe once in Whedon's cut, if even that. They're all kind of blurring together a little bit now. But I mean, he goes full like Iron Man mask, and it's just much more character development in those little things.
Yeah.
And then that whole backstory with the waitress that he helped out was very sweet. And I mean, I think had that been shown, it would be more cemented for someone like you that he's a good guy.
Right.
And since that was cut, it's kind of up in the air.
I did appreciate that they went into his backstory a little bit more with his mom, because you saw that there once was a really tender side to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then when his dad brought him back, you can tell that he's very resentful for the changes that his dad made. But it is explained a lot easier. I think that in the first movie, the problem that I had was the interaction between him and his dad did not make any sense because I didn't have enough of the backstory. They just kind of introduced it while they were speaking, but I was so focused on, am I about to watch somebody die? Like, it was just really dark, but not enough information for you to be able to make an assessment.
Right.
I did want to say that like when the Cyborg was saying that he wanted to connect with the mother boxes and pull them apart in the first one, that's also where I guess not having a full understanding of his character made me suspicious that something might happen negatively, which it didn't. But again, there were a lot of holes.
Yeah.
There were a lot of holes that they didn't fill that I don't think he really cared to fill. And for somebody like me coming in who had no background on any of these characters, I just felt very lost.
I mean, you mentioned the scene with him pulling the mother boxes apart or syncing with them, I guess. Because Superman actually pulled them apart. But
yeah, he went in and
that whole sequence with after they, got Superman's body, brought it to the Kryptonian ship in Star Lab, that it just made so much more sense in this one because their plan. Like they lay it out for you, which it's the same concept, just definitely more so. And you get more of an idea of what Flash can do with time. And in the first one, the mother box hits the water and Flash touches the mother box and zaps it, and that's it. In Snyder's cut, he's actually like too late.
Right.
Flash, he doesn't get to the box in time, and his ability takes time back just a few seconds to where he can touch it as it touches the water. That brings Superman back. Flash is just a totally different. He's not different. He's more of a character in this. Like, I think with Cyborg being the one who really got the short shaft in Whedoncut, Flash was definitely like a runner-up.
Yeah.
And they kind of just depended on him for the laughs to be kind of like the comedic sidekick who can run fast. This, you get a backstory. You get more of the stuff with his dad in jail. You get an intro to him that was never even alluded to in Whedon's cut, where he's applying as a dog walker, I believe, and he makes eye contact with this girl outside, and she gets hit by, or she collides.
He's about to.
Yeah.
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
But he sees it coming.
Right. So he sees it in his mind very slowly as her car hits an 18-wheeler and she goes flying out. So he runs out there and just has like this drawn out moment where he's like caressing her face and moving her hair, and I'm like, this is getting a little creepy. Stop doing this, because I'm not sure that she's consenting to everything that's happening right now. And then there's just all these like phallic hot dogs like floating around,
that was so ridiculous. I forgot about the hot dogs.
And he pockets a hot dog, which in the moment I was like, the fuck is happening?
He thinks ahead, Pants.
Yes. So he gets her to safety and is able to get back into the pet shop before anybody even knows there's a crash. And he's sitting inside the little dog pen, feeding the hot dog to the dogs. And he's like, so I start Monday, right? And I thought that was a good introduction to him instead of, seeing him on the surveillance tape and then Bruce Wayne just showing up at his lair or wherever he's at.
That was so cute.
Yeah.
I liked his little setup.
They changed, and this is just like another weird thing I noticed. He had all those monitors set up. In the original, in Whedon's cut, there's a bunch of like K-pop videos or something happening on the monitors, and in the Snyder cut, it's like a pink skull that's just like rotating, and that's it. It was just a weird change that I'd kind of like to know the story behind. Like, why did Whedon add K-pop, or why didn't Snyder like K-pop? I don't know. Who knows? I don't.
I liked the way that they didn't make him so childish in the second movie. Mm-hmm. He is a kid. Right. But the way that the team supports him and speaks to him is not like he's just this guy that's there who they have to give directive to.
Sure. He also didn't have a Russian family to save in this movie.
That was such a strange...
It was such a weird addition.
It was, and now looking back on it, it didn't really make a whole... I guess it did make sense because they needed to give you some background as to where he was, I suppose, but...
I think it was there just to give, like, human stakes to the situation, because nobody... That town, it looked like, was mostly abandoned. Right. And so I don't know why they were living there.
Well, and that's the thing, there were so many trucks leaving at the end of the first movie. The second one, there were a lot of like once the bad guys evacuated that area or whatever, the parademons, then all these people that were trapped in their homes started leaving, and they had to go rescue all of them. But that was so pointless, and it kind of is frustrating because if they had enough time to put that bullshit into the movie, then they had time to develop some of the characters and remove that excessive scene.
I mean, I can see Whedon's thought process on adding it.
It's just
and I don't agree with it. But I can see that he's trying to give some human stakes to this because none of our heroes really are just regular people, right? So, I mean, even Batman, who really doesn't have powers, is a superhero. He's rich. Don't give me that look.
I'm sorry, but...
And... So, I mean, I see what he's going for. It did not work. I'm glad that they took that out. I'm glad that they removed the whole Flash and Superman racing at the end. That was silly.
There were a lot of things at the end of the Whedoncut that were dumb.
Yeah. And I really, really liked the changes aesthetically that they made to Steppenwolf. Yes. I don't particularly think him or Darkseid are great looking villains. I think they're pretty generic for the most part. They just kind of have like that off-brand Thanos kind of look to them, like this squared face, and it's kind of gray purple. Apparently, Warner Brothers wanted to change Snyder's Steppenwolf because they thought he looked too scary. So they made him like this super boring, basic ass, whatever he is. Wow. Yeah. I don't think any version is particularly scary, but the armor he wears is awesome. It's super metallic. It kind of reacts to his mood and the situation, and you can always see it kind of in flux. And Steppenwolf himself is definitely more of a pawn in the Snyder Cut. Yes.
Which I appreciated more.
Yeah, for sure.
That was something that you and I had also talked about, right. How that was kind of left open.
Yeah, and you get more of Darkseid. You get Darkseid, which I don't think was in the Whedoncut. You get Desaad, who is working for Darkseid, who's kind of the middleman between him and Steppenwolf. And Steppenwolf just throughout the movie is just trying to get on Darkseid's good side.
It just overall had a lot more development than the first.
he's very much like that kid who's constantly trying to impress their parent.
Yeah.
Like that middle child, right?
It's so ridiculous. It's like the bad guy was being submissive and like, please take me back.
Right.
I'll be more evil, I promise.
It was kind of pathetic on his part. I mean, it was well done. I'm glad it was done. I'm just saying, but he's like pathetic in this movie, and I appreciate it.
I also really enjoyed the changes in just the surrounding from what the mother boxes were producing, like how they were kind of starting to destroy the world, where Whedon was purple and reminded me of like the Blob, and then Snyder's cut was more like volcanic looking, like actual like destruction and recreation.
It was like evil, like. And the whole kind of subplot of the anti-life equation, which I think is pretty absent from the Whedoncut. But Steppenwolf says that he found this anti-life equation that Darkseid, I guess, has been looking for because he misplaced it or something. It seems like something really big to just misplace. But he found it on Earth, and that's, I guess, what all the markings are in the ground, like the hieroglyphic-looking lines whenever one of them touches down on Earth. That, I believe, would hypothetically lead into whatever sequel this would have spawned. Because he did have a 3-story arc or a 3-movie arc for this story.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are they also going to be 4 hours apiece?
Well, they're not going to exist. They've already said that this was a one and done. Oh. Like, as much as it leaves you on a cliffhanger, and he even added a scene at the end that gives it more of a cliffhanger. Yeah. But I think all the time knowing that he was not going to finish whatever's next, or he wouldn't even start what's coming next. Because I believe it was reported like last week or the week before that the original plan was for Superman and Lois's child to be powerless, and it would grow up to be the next Batman. I want to say it. Gosh, I almost want to say it was like an alternate timeline that they go to, because they named their child Bruce. Wow. And awesome. Yeah, so that's kind of the whole thing with like the pregnancy test that's shown for a little bit longer than it should have been in the Snyder Cut, kind of to give credence to that forthcoming storyline. Okay, so let's move on to the epilogue chapter of the movie, which, as we stated before, is the only additional footage that Zack Snyder shot for the movie. Right. Apparently, Ezra Miller was not available for the shoots, so he kind of did his wherever he was, and he was digitally added in. But I believe everybody else was available to do this. It's kind of apparent to me that it was done at a different time, because I don't feel like Ben Affleck is filling out the face area of the suit as much as he was throughout the rest of the movie. Like he's lost a few pounds, or the mask is bigger. I don't know, but that was kind of one of the first things. Is bigger. Alfred was playing. You got me the wrong size. And that was weirdly one of the first things I noticed about it, was that his face didn't look right in the mask anymore. But how do you feel about the epilogue, the nightmare sequence of the movie?
I'd be interested to see how that would play out. Not that we are ever going to be able to. Maybe we will.
We won't.
Somebody might create something that's half-ass like the Whedoncut. So I hate how much I love Jared Leto and how much I hate the way he laughs as the Joker. It's great. I'm not dogging his acting at all. It is creepy as hell. And I think that if I were anywhere remotely near that man, I would know that I was about to die. He just reeks of insanity. I thought that was... I always think that his performances are very interesting. This is the second or third movie that we've covered with him in it. Second, sorry. That man is really talented. I love his vocal cords. So back to the scene itself. I was a little confused, and I know that Pants had to enlighten me a little bit on backstory that I wasn't already aware of.
I think you were aware, you just weren't connecting the right dots.
Yeah, we can go with that. It feels like it would have been interesting to watch, but it was very short, and there's not a lot to go off of.
Right. So I kind of have to look at this scene in combination with Cyborg's nightmare scene earlier in the movie whenever he plugged into the Kryptonian ship. In that scene, you see Wonder Woman dead. You see Aquaman killed by, it looks like Darkseid.
It's because the ship keeps telling him to not go through with
Right,
this.
right. Whenever they're counting down, like, this is probably not a good idea, but they keep going. That fits in with Batman's nightmare, where we see them in this kind of Mad Max dystopian future where, you know, the city has crumbled. He's teamed up still with Flash, with Cyborg, who looks a lot like Quasimodo with his cloak on, and
It's because he's concealing his weapons.
yeah, I can see that, but he looks like a hunchback. And
It's a very large cannon that just comes out spider-like.
yeah, it does. It seems like it would be a lot on his back, but I guess he doesn't have it back, so he probably doesn't really get the strain of it.
Right.
But and he's also teamed up with Mira now, the Atlantean, and we see Deathstroke there, and then they're also now teamed up with, as you said, Jared Leto's Joker. And I think this performance of Joker is better than what we saw throughout Suicide Squad. I know you said that you like the laugh, but it creeps you out. I don't like his interpretation of the laugh. I think this performance that he's giving is much more unhinged Heath Ledger Joker than what Jared Leto was doing in Suicide Squad. Almost to the point where it feels like imitation, but I dig it more than I did what he was doing in Suicide Squad.
Sure. I think that the surrounding elements to his life at the moment have very much influenced his character.
Harley
in that
Quinn
too.
is dead, apparently.
Which is
And
so sad.
Lois Lane is dead. They've mentioned, or Batman and Joker had a back and forth about Robin's death and Batman's parents, and just everybody who Joker's had a hand in killing, or anybody in Bruce Wayne's life that's died because he didn't do what he could have done, I guess. All this to say that the force that they're uniting against is Superman.
Greater than any conflict they have.
Right. So, I mean, they kind of went against him at the beginning of this movie. At the beginning of the Whedoncut, in the middle of the Snydercut. But that was quickly extinguished by Lois Lane's presence.
Yeah.
It's understood that she's now dead in this nightmare sequence. So Superman's just unhinged and apparently just a force to be reckoned with for everybody.
I would imagine so. As Superman just running around.
And I'm sure they're like, where's the lamentation music?
Well, Wonder Woman's dead.
Do they miss the music?
I think that dealing with post-apocalyptic sceneries like that probably hinders their thoughts.
I'm just sure they miss hearing it.
Ah.
Or like if someone's like playing it at a club and they're like, God, I miss Wonder Woman.
At the club. With all the purr demons.
Yeah, they just put on like a dubstep version of the ancient lamentation.
It's like the Purge but backwards. Like one night a year, everybody like throws down. Like no one has to fight. We're just gonna play EDM all night.
EDM lamentation music.
Right.
EDMLM.
Stop. I forgot to mention one of my favorite parts in this movie, now that we're kind of wrapping towards the end. Mm-hmm. There's a scene in which two people are holding Superman, or he's fighting two people. I think that it was
It was all three of them. It was Aquaman,
and
Cyborg, and Wonder Woman, if we're talking about the same thing.
Okay, yeah. And so I think all three of them are trying to pin him down, and the Flash was going to, come behind Superman and do something, and I don't quite remember what it was. I just love that it slows down. You're watching Flash run behind Superman, and all you see is Superman's eyes move at a normal rate, and then his face turn at an almost normal rate. And
his eyes just bug
Ezra's
out.
eyes just got real big. He's like, oh, crap. He was just the young, quirky guy in the super gang.
Super gang.
I couldn't think of anything to say.
The Justice League.
The Justice
you moron.
League. Shut up.
The super gang.
Oh, whatever. Anyways, pants.
So Tina.
No, I was trying to think of one. Don't. I want to do it. Just kidding. Do you have a skill?
So Christina.
You just do it on purpose now.
How many Ancient Lamentations would you give the first Justice League? None, because it didn't have any Ancient Lamentations in it. That's why it sucked.
That's why it sucked.
Yeah, that's the sole reason.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. How many Lamentations would you give the Snyder Cut?
4 hours.
4 hours is not the scale we're using.
4 hours worth of lamentation music.
How does that equal on a 1 to 10 scale?
Let's do the math on that.
Carry the
5. It's the wrong song. 8.
Nice.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. It was too long.
Yes.
I understand why. It was still too long. And there were some things in there still that I probably would have
I feel like
cut.
Yeah. I feel like a good cut of this movie would have been 3 hours, maybe
Yeah.
3
Like
and
Lord
a
of the
half.
Rings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Lord of the Rings length. And
Sure.
it would have been fine.
Like 3.5 max with credits, I
Yes.
think would have been good.
Yes.
So
Because that last hour honestly was, even though that was the part that was mostly jam-packed with the action, the climax
you were just
of the
exhausted
story,
by then.
it was just like, how much more of this are we going to sit through?
Yeah. I mean, it was...
And god damn it, that lamentation music again.
I mean, it was very much like they gave him this stack of money and they were like, do whatever you want to do. Keep it under a lifetime. And he was like, I got 4 hours.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
The average person can hold their bladder for... It's actually a good
12
question.
hours.
No!
Yes.
Not the average person.
I think so.
I think that you're not consuming enough water.
I consume a lot of water.
Uh,
You're going to ask me how many fucking Lamentations I would give this movie?
I don't really care. Pants.
Fuck you, Tina.
How many weird Joker laughs would you give this movie? Also, I'd like you to give me your interpretation of the Joker's laugh.
I think it would sound more like Squidward if I tried it. It would be like a...
I haven't heard Squidward laugh in so long. Oh,
Now you have. So I would give it... We're going on Joker laughs?
Sure.
Okay. It's not as good as mine, but it's fine. Yeah, I think 7.5. Like, I think 7's too low. 8's kind of push. You know, fuck it. Yeah, 8's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's going to be really hard to stop a Joker laugh midway. Like, ha.
It's like that stupid laugh you do. Do it.
I hate you. Of all the things, you have to tie that into it. Thanks.
Yeah, so I enjoyed it. I've now watched it 3 times, and I don't fully feel the need to give it any more time. 12 hours is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Spent a day watching this movie total.
Yeah.
A quarter of that day was in black and white. Gray, as it were. Justice is gray.
So, like, final comment on that, because I didn't actually watch the full... Was it called The Gray Justice?
Justice is gray.
Justice is gray.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the whole thing, but when I came over here, Pants was watching it, and so I caught however long it took me to eat my lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And it was too dark. It was way too dark. I understand that you probably did it for, like you said, dramatic effect. But I think it took away from the movie,
I think
honestly.
the movie was already dark enough. Like he sucked the color out of that movie to begin with.
Right.
Because that's just his style, and that's fine. But to take it all the way down to just black and white, it didn't add anything.
Mm-hmm.
This was just like they turned the color off their TV. And we're
Right.
like, look, another edition of
It
this.
was just the filter.
Yeah. So now would be the time where we go back to kind of our normal programming.
Yeah.
And roll. Yeah, so it's my turn.
It's so ridiculous because to roll this die, we're having to find soft surfaces so that the mics don't pick it up, and it sounds horrendously loud for you guys. So you're not going to hear it, but I'm going to go ahead and do my best interpretation of what a roll would sound like. So.
Oh, good. We can keep this for later.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep. That was so dumb.
That's what dice sound like.
Yeah.
And E is what we have landed on. Next week, I will be picking a movie that begins with E. I have one in mind, and I think you're gonna love it.
Oh, okay. Those are never good words.
You're
to hear
gonna
out
love
of his
it.
mouth, guys. I'm so scared. Oh, we'll see. All right, guys. Well, that concludes this week's podcast. We hope you.
You had a weird inflect, like a radio voice. I didn't like it.
I was born this way. Thank you guys.
Well, guys.
I tried to come back in. You're such a jerk. That was so alarming. Oh, okay. Don't cover your face like that. Just look at me. I don't like that. Okay.
So that concludes this week's episode of What the Fuck Have We Been Watching? That's not the name of the podcast again.
Incorrect.
Of What the Fuck Did I Just Watch?
There we go.
And as always, we really appreciate you guys listening. Just continue to spread the word. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher.
Feel free to follow us on Twitter at WTF Did I Watch Pod, where we
did
will...
it.
You're such a jerk. You can follow us there and get hints on what we're going to put out for the next week.
If you haven't already and you use Apple Podcasts, if you could give us a star rating and a comment, it really helps other people to discover the show. And again, just spread the word, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys.
Bye.
I cannot leave that in there. We will be flagged so fast.